Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant. I'm Graham Giason Matthews, where I break down all the events I watch on the WWE Network. And today, at long last, we're talking about the 2001 epic failure of a show that was the 2001 Invasion pay-per-view. So kind of surprising, yet not so surprising. I've yet to watch this show, or I had yet to watch the show until just recently. For one thing, I figured it would be no better time, no more fitting time to break down this show than in the same month, the 15-year anniversary of the show this month, in the month of July. Not the exact anniversary, at least I don't believe so, but it was 15 years ago this month the Invasion pay-per-view took place. That wasn't the reason they held it off so long, just because I really had no desire to watch it, knowing it was so bad, and it surely didn't live up to those low expectations and being not a good show, and I'll talk about that soon enough. But it's just funny that the network's been around for 2.5 years. WrestleRant's technically been around for the last 5 years, but I've been breaking down pay-per-views here in WrestleRant for the past 2.25 years, since February, March of 2014. Yet I had never watched this pay-per-view before now. Again, because I really had no desire to watch it. I knew how bad it was. And like I said, it really was just as bad as I figured it would be. So breaking it down, kicking off the show, and for those of you unaware, of course, the Invasion pay-per-view was right in the smack dab in the middle of the Invasion angle, which saw ECW and WCW invade the WWE. And there wasn't enough star power. You had Booker T, Diamond Dallas Page, and that was about it. I mean, you had the Dudley Boys representing ECW, but there was no gigantic star power on the Alliance side, hence why the entire angle was a massive disappointment, and all the haphazard booking and switching of sides, and the wrestling wasn't that great, and we'll get all into that by the end of the review. So anyway, kicking off the show, tag team action, Edge and Christian representing the WWF, taking on Lance Storm and Mike Awesome representing the Alliance. An alright match. I mean, Edge and Christian could get a good match out of just about anybody, so this was a good match. Storm and Awesome made for a good team, and it was cool to see Storm in the ring with Edge and Christian. They had good chemistry with one another, so a good opener, much better than the rest of the undercard for the most part. After that, we had Earl Hebner. Speaking of which, Earl Hebner versus Nick Patrick, representing the Alliance, and Hebner representing the WWF. Just as bad as you would expect it to be. I mean, it's two referees. What do you want me to tell you? I mean, Mick Foley was a special guest referee. For what reason, I have no idea. He was a complete waste in this role. He came back out as a special guest referee for the Bras and Panties match, which was a bit more appropriate, I guess, for Foley. But this match just fucking sucked. Thank God it only lasted 2 minutes, but 2 minutes. But it was 2 minutes too long. Awful. Again, it was all right, I guess, because they had a story going into it. The video package, there was more effort put in the video package than the match itself. But why? I mean, just end it with the wrestlers. You don't have to go beyond that line and having the referees feud too. That to me just felt pointless. Because the match, they're not wrestlers and the match sucked, so that match kind of spoke for itself. Earl Hebner won, by the way. Not like it mattered. The APA took on the Natural Born Thrillers, Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo. The match sucked. Not a really good match. There was no real reason for the APA to win. It would have done O'Haire and Palumbo a much bigger benefit to win here and put them over as the next big stars. I mean, they were the younger stars, and not like it really mattered. They dropped the belts to Taker and Kane, or I believe it was Taker and Kane, not too long afterwards. And then they feuded with Diamond Dallas Page and Chris Kanyon of the Alliance. So, I mean, again, they were short-term champions anyway, but it really did them no service whatsoever. It really did them a huge disservice to lose here. And they needed the rub. A lot of these Alliance guys were either unknowns or no one gave a shit about them. So for them to lose so decisively to the APA really did them no favors whatsoever. Billy Kidman from the Alliance taking on X-Pac of the WWF, the Cruiserweight Champion, versus the light heavyweight champion from the WWF, a title that was never really necessary to begin with. But a really fun match. Apparently not as good as their other encounters that year, but still a good match in and of itself for this show alone. Better than, like I said, than most of the undercard or most of the show, period. It's still a good match. These guys are both great workers. They worked well together, had fun chemistry. In the end, it was Billy Kidman scoring the victory. Again, as he should have. He was more of an unknown, and wouldn't you know, because he won the match here, he had a much more successful career than the WCW guys that lost on this show. A lot like Sean O'Haire and Palumbo, they did not last. I mean, Palumbo came back later down the line, but Billy Kidman was around for a number of years beyond this pay-per-view without leaving and then coming back. He was around as Cruiserweight champion, as a tag team champion, on the SmackDown brand. So winning here really did him a huge favor in beating a credible name such as X-Pac. After that, we had the Alliance member Raven taking on William Regal of the WWF. Total throwaway. I really have no idea why this match happened to begin with. There was no real feud there. I mean, a lot of these matches, there wasn't a feud there. It was just Alliance versus WWF. But Regal and Raven was a very odd pairing. And expectedly enough, not surprising whatsoever, they really had no chemistry. The match just wasn't really that good. Raven won with some help from Taz, and that was it. So that was a bit odd. After that, a 6-man tag team match representing the Alliance. It was Chris Kanyon, Sean Stasiak, and Hugh Morris. Hugh E. Morris it was Hugh G. Erection he later changed his name to, or maybe that was in WCW. I don't know. I can never get over how funny that was. Taking on Billy Gunn, Big Show, and Albert of the WWF. The match, again, sucked. They gave the win to the young guys, or quote-unquote young guys, in Kanyon, Stasiak, and Morris, but then they got squashed afterwards by Big Show. So who did it really help in the end? Again, the match sucked. They had the right ending, but they couldn't help themselves, so they buried the guys afterwards. Really, again, completely meaningless. Tajiri taking on Taz, again, a fine match for what it was, but really a lot like Raven and Regal really served no purpose. There was no real purpose here, no real meaning, no real rivalry. It just kind of was there. Tajiri won. Moving on. Easily, in my opinion, the best match of the night. The main event was pretty good. Was good, for what it was, but I thought this was really the match of the night, unsurprisingly. RVD taking on Jeff Hardy for the Hardcore Championship. Jeff Hardy was the Hardcore Champion coming in. These guys would have a number of great matches in 2001, including, it might have been, I'm pretty sure it was at SummerSlam, RVD and Hardy in a ladder match for the Hardcore Championship. I believe they had more matches in 2002 over that same title, if not the European Championship. I believe it was the European title. But these guys always worked well together. I mean, when you put RVD and Jeff Hardy in the ring together, you're always going to have a great match, and this match was really no exception to that. Really, really fun match. Like I said, there was no real story told, but all the good spots, all the spots were very crowd-pleasing and satisfying, and they had a really good rhythm going on here. RVD, in the end, scoring the victory and the Hardcore Championship in the process. So again, in my opinion, the best bout of the night, doesn't even come close. After that, a Bras and Panties tag team match. Trish and Lita taking on Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler. Lita and Trish won. Awful match. I mean, like I say with every Bras and Panties match, entertaining for the men, awful wrestling-wise. That kind of goes without saying at this point. And then the main event, an inaugural brawl match. So basically a 10-man tag team match. The Alliance, Booker T, Diamond Dallas Page, Rhino, and the Dudley Boys taking on Team WWF, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, The Undertaker, Kane, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. So basically, this was what we would get at Survivor Series many months later without the elimination rules and with The Rock leading Team WWF instead of Stone Cold Steve Austin. In the ending outcome of this was so predictable that from an in-ring standpoint, it was a good match. It went way too long, in almost a half an hour, and it was a huge, massive clusterfuck with 10 people in the ring at the same time and no eliminations. So it did become a bit of a mess towards the end. I mean, it was fun and chaotic at certain points, but at other points it was just like, well, this is a fucking train wreck. But still, a good match, kind of, the good outweighing the bad. But like I said, the ending outcome was never really in doubt. Stone Cold came back, and they alluded to it on this show, and I had to go back and watch it for myself. It's on YouTube. Stone Cold Steve Austin comes back to Raw after, I don't know, a week hiatus. I don't know how long he was out for. I know he got injured and then came back, I think. I don't really remember exactly. But anyway, so Stone Cold came back to Raw during the middle of the invasion angle and just cleaned house of the Alliance guys on Raw, and it was a massive fucking, a huge moment. It was amazing. Crowd went nuts, laying out everybody with stunners from the Alliance. It was great. And then 6 days later, because Austin was heel before this, everyone knew he was going back heel, and ultimately he did. Being the, double-crossing his team, joining the Alliance, and helping them pick up the victory. So it was good they won. The Alliance won. I mean, it would have been the same mistake they made to the Nexus 9 years later and having the young guys win, the up-and-comers win, or lose, rather, to the established team of Jericho and Taker and Kane and Angle and all those guys, a lot like with Team Cena in 2010, like I said, at SummerSlam with the Nexus. So the outcome was good, albeit predictable. They had to have those guys win. But just this whole angle, this whole show kind of sums up how bad of an angle this fucking thing was. It was so terrible. Really, really bad. Like, a lot of these matches weren't even really that good. SummerSlam had some better matches. I remember watching SummerSlam last year and remembering, well, some of the matches that took place during this angle weren't really that bad. It was just the fact that people were switching and flopping from side to side, and it made no sense. WCW or the Alliance had no star power. Really, in a dream scenario, it would have been excellently executed, but without any star power, without Goldberg, Flair, Hogan, Nash, Hall, all those guys, no one gave a shit about this whatsoever. Sting, the only true stars they had in the Alliance, other than Austin, who doesn't really count because he wasn't from WCW, but he was on their team, was Booker T and barely Diamond Dallas Page. I mean, Page, DDP would have been a big star for the Alliance had he not gotten squashed by The Undertaker in an awful feud the following month over that summer. And then Booker T, again, also not got squashed, but he really wasn't in the same level as the Austins and the Rocks and Jerichos when they got involved in the feuds down the line. So overall, thumbs down, not a good show as you would expect. If you've seen it before, you know what I'm talking about. If you love the invasion angle, maybe you enjoy this show. But I certainly did not enjoy this show. Not a lot of great wrestling whatsoever. So at least with SummerSlam of that year, I could say, you know what, the angle sucked, but at least they had some pretty good matches. This show, not a lot of good matches at all, really. I mean, RVD and Jeff Hardy had some really, really good chemistry together and had a great match. And the main event, like I said, was a massive clusterfuck. Still good, but a massive train wreck. But the rest of the show was not good. The bras and panties match was exactly what you would expect it to be. The referee shit was awful. Kidman and X-Pac was fine. The opening tag match was fine. Everything else was pretty forgettable. So not really a good show whatsoever. So that is the Invasion 2001. That could be summed up in one word: disappointing. I mean, going in, I didn't have high expectations, but I mean, for people at that time that were expecting this huge, amazing, invasion angle, this great dream pay-per-view with dream matches, champion versus champion, and all this other stuff, it was an epic failure. So anyway, guys, that is the Invasion 2001. Thank you for watching and listening along with me. As always, I appreciate your support. You can be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. So I'll be back in my next video, my next couple videos, or 10 videos, I guess, over the course of August and beyond. We'll be covering the King of the Ring pay-per-views as seen on the WWE Network, starting with King of the Ring 1993, which I just got finished watching and was a lot better than this show. So stay tuned for that in my next video. And in the meantime, and in between time, you guys can find me on the Twitter machine. Follow me there at WrestleRant on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. And like I said, right here on YouTube as well. All the links are down below in the description box. So with all that being said, guys, I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Have a great week or a weekend, whatever it might be, and I'll catch you folks down the road.